Hi everyone, it's Margaret with Creative Stamping with Margaret. I'm an independent Stampin' Up demonstrator, and today I'm sharing with you one of the cards from the August 2023 card class. For the month of August, the theme was Fun Folds. There were 4 Fun Fold cards for the class, and today the one that I'm sharing with you is a Z-Fold Easel card. As you can see, this is a really gorgeous card, just a beautiful card, and it features the inked and tiled bundle from the annual catalog that is actually on pages 94 and 95 in the annual catalog. We're also using the inked Botanicals Designer Series Paper that coordinates with that bundle. There's a whole suite of products there, so be sure to check those out. And the inked and tile does come with 2 punches, but the one we're using today is the star punch, and then we're using a variety of stamps from the stamp set. So let me set that to the side, and I'll go over the items that we'll be using for the card. And just to let you know, in the description of this video, you will find a list of the materials and the dimensions of the cards and score lines, etc. So you don't have to worry about writing down all of that. You can sit back, enjoy the video, see how it's assembled, and then be able to refer to those items in the description. If you ordered one of my to-go kits, which I offer each month for all of my card classes, then you will have received these materials. A lot of them already pre-cut for you. You'll just need to do the stamping. So we have Very Vanilla, and that will be to cut the panel that goes on the front and the interior. You'll also have some of the botanicals, the inked botanicals paper. You'll need a scrap of crushed curry, as well as a scrap of Very Vanilla, and that's for the sentiment. And actually, yeah, that is vanilla. Then you'll need a panel of the Calypso Coral, and that will be to die cut the larger panels that we're using, and that uses the countryside corners. And the ones that I use from the countryside corners, if you count from the largest one down, so the largest is number 1, you would need panel 2, 3, and 4. So that would be dies 2, 3, and 4 to cut the panels. And I'll talk about that when we get to those particular panels. Then, of course, we have our crushed curry card base, one that will give us our Z-fold. And then the card base itself is the Calypso Coral. And then, of course, we have a piece of the Very Vanilla for the interior of the Calypso Coral portion of the card. And then 2 more pieces of that inked Botanicals Designer Series paper. And of course, a Very Vanilla envelope. The ink colors that I'm using are the Crushed Curry, Calypso Coral, and Lost Lagoon. You'll also need 2 sponge daubers, one for the Crushed Curry and one for the Lost Lagoon. Then the other thing that you'll notice here is that I have used the Countryside Corners stamp. Let's see if you can see that. Get that up so you can see that. To stamp the little outlines. If you don't have that stamp, and if you only have the dies, because I do know some people have just ordered the dies, you could just stamp any kind of background. Actually, it would look good plain, and but it just that little bit of stitching adds nicely to it. And in the card on the stamp set, you see these little, I'm going to say they're like dandelions. If you wanted, you could stamp those around if you do not have the Countryside Corners stamp set. So let's pull and start working on our card. So the first thing, let's fold our card base. Let me get this going the right direction. And here it is. Underneath all this paper is my bone folder. And then for the Z card, you're going to fold along that score line. You've got the long piece, then you've got a smaller, then you have a score line, then another score line. So we're going to fold at the middle, and then we're going to fold the second one back on itself. So we're creating, that's our Z fold. And let's go ahead and place start building and decorating by adding our Designer Series paper to our panels. And just do that as so. And now we will add our larger designers. And I see I have cut this incorrectly. So let me grab my cutter and just cut this down. I need to take off, that should be 3 3/4. Yes, and then that should be, I need to take off a quarter here. So there. That was easily repaired. Because that panel should have been 3 3/4 by 5. Okay, then the next step is we will add this to our card front. Let me just check and make sure I have this correct. Yes, I do. So we will add this, and you'll want to put lots of adhesive on the back of this because you've got this, the weight of this paper, so we need to just get that down, and then you're going to place that, leaving that small little bit of trim around. So now let's do some stamping. So first, I'm going to show you how I stamped the countryside corners. And I actually used the Stamparatus, which of course is now retired, but any stamp positioning tool, there are several of them on the market you could use. So I just place my paper into my Stamparatus. Let me grab, oops. And I just moved everything here. Let me grab my magnet here to hold this in place. And I'm going to ink up the stamp using the same color as the paper, which is our Calypso Coral. And I'm really concerned more about these outside lines. And it looks like I have a good trim there. And then I took and I turned my paper again and placed it in. And I'm not concerned if it overlaps a little on the edge, because I am cutting that. I'm cutting where the stitched lines are. So this was one way just to save a little bit of paper. And I have the great stitching. Then I'll move this from our and then this is where you would use this large die, the larger of the three that we pulled from the countryside corners. This is, as I said, with the largest die. This is the largest of the countryside corner, so that's die number 1. So we're using die number 2 to cut these 2 panels, which will give us this. Then you will pull in your piece of Very Vanilla, and you'll run this through your die cutting machine, and you'll come up with these 2, and this is what we're going to stamp on. And I did these ahead of time just because I knew this video could get quite lengthy with a lot of the pieces that we have to do. So for stamping our flower, I have taken, and this is where we're using the sponge daubers. So first, let's start with our crushed curry. So we have we've inked up our crushed curry. And for the stem, I'm using Lost Lagoon. And I pulled these colors directly from the inked Botanicals paper so that it would coordinate. So let's ink that up. And then what I like to do is sort of huff whenever I am doing the sponge dauber and adding ink to my stamp. Just by doing that, it helps keep that, the warmth of your breath will help keep that ink moist. And as you see, I have stamped that on our smaller piece. Then the next step is to add this to our Calypso Coral panel. And I think I'm running out of inks. Out of glue. Let me bring in another glue. There we go. That one has ink in it, or has glue in it, not ink. I'm looking at the ink pads, and that's in my mind because I want to make sure I don't put my hand in it. So we'll have that. We'll set that to the side. And then on the inside, as you can see, I have stamped the sentiment, and that sentiment that I'm using because I'm doing a birthday card. I love that. May the years ahead be filled with lasting joy. And that comes from the Lasting Joy stamp set. So we'll bring in our larger countryside corner piece that we cut, and using the Calypso Coral, we're going to stamp our sentiment. Let me close that before I stick my fingers in it. Bring back in our crushed curry and the Lost Lagoon, and this time we're going to use the smaller flower that is in the stamp set. And there again, just as we did with the large, we're using our sponge daubers to add ink. And of course I rocked that a little, but I'll fix that by adding another little bit flower there. This one's going to have more than one. See how that worked? And this ink pad was recently inked, so it's showing it as a little bit darker, but once it dries, I just wiped some of this excess ink off of the stamp. Bring this back in. I'm going to add 3 sets of these flowers at the bottom. This just helps to hide that boo-boo. There. See, there's always a way to go around that. And now we're going to take the small, what I call like little dandelions. Let me go ahead and close this. And we're going to stamp just a couple of those randomly on our top portion. And while we have our stamp out, let's go ahead and stamp one on the panel for the other portion of our card. So I'll bring back in the Lost Lagoon. And we'll also add one of these to our envelope. This is all of the stamping that we're going to be doing. Next, we're just going to finish assembling the card. So we can move our inks out of the way so that we don't get any on our card while we're finishing it. And the same with these dirty stamps. I moved them out of the way. So bring in the other countryside corners panel that we cut, and we're going to add our stamped panel to it, layering it on. Then this will be added to the inside of our card on the panel that has the Designer Series paper. Now, when we go to add this, we're going to make sure that it aligns with the one behind, but as you notice, you don't want to add adhesive to the top. So what I like to do is I place it where it needs to go. And look at the ink I have on my fingers. Oh my. So I place it where I want to go, and then I put my side fingers where I think the ink should stay below. And then we'll just lay that down on top and adhere that. See, I made sure that that was covered. And I said we were through stamping. I forgot we have to stamp our little happy birthday stamp and do that die cut. Well, not die cut, but our punch cut. So we'll just get this put together as such. And for this, we will need the Calypso Coral ink. And now bring in the star punch, and we're going to punch this. And then do the same with that scrap of crushed curry. And we're going to add this. We're going to layer the stamped sentiment, offsetting it so that the little points alternate with one another. Let me see, I've not got that on there very good. Let me try that again. There. Then to add that to our card, we are going to use dimensionals. And then for the last little bit of embellishment, these are the Tinsel Gems 3-pack, and they have 3 different colors in them, and this one is the Lost Lagoon. So I'm just going to add one of those in the center below the sentiment, just to add that little bit. And these tinsel gems are really neat because if you look closely at them, they do have tinsel on the interior. So we have completed our Z-Fold Easel card featuring the inked and tiled bundle. I hope that you've enjoyed seeing how this card was made. And if you would, check out my blog, Creative Stamping with Margaret, and also subscribe to my YouTube channel so that you can get notification when the other videos in this class are posted, as well as the other classes. And if you would like to order kits to go, check out creativestampingwithmargaret.com, and there you're able to subscribe and get information on my monthly card class to go. There again, be sure to check out all the videos that I post in August that are featuring fun folds. Thanks for joining me.